Assalamu alaikum. Dear student, welcome once again in the e-learning center of the Department of Business Administration of Dhaka City College. We are right now in our concluding class today, and hopefully we will have to finish within very short time because this is a very small chapter. Also new chapter today I'm gonna start, and also I'll give you some briefing on some unique things and some important thing in our life today. So let's talk about the first issue, that what do you think about and what do you know about the parenting. Parents are providing and have a pivotal role in our, and they will have playing a very celestial role in our life. What about parents? They are making your life possible sometime, why it is important in your life, because they are giving you some values and they are trying to give you some lesson so that you can work on social community and also in the professional life. Also they are arranging something from the very beginning of your birthhood. They are like a guardian. They are giving you some guidance, they are giving you some value system, they are maintaining some cultures, and they are developing some kind of the policies and procedures so that your life is right now in a very effective way that you are running. So I think they are playing an important role in your life. So why I'm talking about the parents and why I'm talking about these things in this lecture, because this is a very important co-relationship I'm gonna start today, and I'm going to make today that International Labour Organization we are going to start today, and that is ILO is playing like parents for the International Labour Organization, for the international community or the laborers who are doing across the countries or the different countries at a time. Why they are working, why they are living, and why they are managing their time in the different organization. They need money. In fact, this is the main important thing, why they are working, because to make their life possible, because without money you cannot live your life properly. You need to finance, you need to give you some, you have to bear your cost of living, and that is the things that you need the money and the salary. But important thing is that based on that issues that employers sometimes exploit their workers in different way, in different phases. So that's why they need some rules and regulation. They need some standard rules and regulation to be for protecting the workers in the different community. So that's why there will be a correlationship. You see that there is a positive correlationship between the parents and the International Labour Organization. For the international labor communities, the international labor organizations are playing like a guardian. And also think about yourself, what about your parents? They are also guides you, because your parents are guides you. They makes your life possible because they will give you some guidance. They will make your life possible in the different cases, because when you face some problem in your life, when you face some kind of difficulties in your life, your parents are making or having playing a role of kind of shield. They are developing in front of that obstacles, and then they are trying to protect your life from the dangers. So this is the way that the labor and the different communities are facing problem in different organizations, and that's why ILO is protecting those things. They are designing some policies based on that. The international community and the international organization, even they have to develop their own policy, otherwise there will be actions against the international organization. So you know that we are doing our business in our country, Bangladesh, and Bangladesh are designing their own policies, and that the international labor organizations are giving different advice time to time to the Bangladesh community and the legislatures, so that they can develop their own labor law based on the International Labor Organization. So even the international organizations are maintaining some rules and regulation, and that will be also applicable, and that will be also important for the international labor communities. So that's why we are talking about the parents and the guardians today when we will start. So So don't violate the rules and regulation that is designed by your parents, because you have to respect their their emotion, because they are designing those policies, they are designing those rules and regulation in your life to protect your life, so that you can be protected, you can be professionally developed, and you can be a very good person in future. So try to understand that emotion and feelings of your parents. So lastly, we discussed about the couple of things earlier in this chapter, in this course also, the conflict resolution, also ethics, and also so all the things we discussed. So you come up with your question and queries after the end of this session, because the next session will be our review session, and that will be conducted within very short time. I will give you the link of that Zoom session. After the end of this class, you will be also given some coursework also, so that I can mark you, because we need to submit your 30 marks, and based on that online assessment, I will give you later on, so that I can submit to your guide teachers, so that your guide teachers also time to time input those things and can submit it to the National University. So we'll start with the International Labour Organization. What is that? First, start with the International Labour Organization's origin and history. So after the First World War, we need the emergence of that, the protection of the labor interest, and that is the interest we need to protect. And in the United States, in 1999, so we start with the first International Labour Organization, chaired by the Samuel Gomper. This is the person who is representing the chair of the organization after that Second World War, and the Treaty of Versailles. And that's why after that treaty, we need to start the international community or the labor forces, and that's why we need International Labour Organization. And also there are several countries involved at that time, not larger amount on number of countries were involved, especially the United States, United Kingdom, Spain, France, and other countries were there at that time. But right now, even the Bangladesh are also right now the member of that organization. So you need to think about that in day by day, the international communities are accepting the International Labour Organization's rules and policies, because they are designed for the betterment of the organization, even because they are protecting the human rights, they are protecting the labor forces. So that's why you have to think about very seriously about their new rules and regulations. So this is all about our history and origin of the International Labour Organization. Now we are starting with our topic according to your course kit. If you go there will be 3 topics basically, and we are discussing those three topics today, starting with the structure of the international community or International Labour Organization. And the structure, this is the basic things, and based on that structure you develop your other activities. Think about from the very beginning of our life, what we develop, what we need a important structure, and that structure is our human body, is a structure, so that we can develop our life very properly. And time to time we are growing up, and then at that time, right now we are adult, and then what you are going to the professional life. So you are just passing through a different phases of your life based on that structure area. So you need some structure also in your organizations. Even the organization is following some structure, and that is organizational structure. Based on that structure, they are developing their own policies, they are designing their members, and they are designing their organizational management system. All the activities are basically following those things on the structure of the organization. Even that's why we need the structure, and even everything in the world are maintaining this system, that they have some value system. So starting with our first thing, that is the structure, or the first structure of the International Labour Organization. It is International Labour Conference, and the second one is the governing body. This is the second important part of the structure of the International Labour Organization. And then the third one is the International Labour Office. There are third number part. And so start with the first one, and that will be the, we are going to start, and that will be discussed later on one by one. So start with the. So already we talked about the origin and the history. So if you want more, just Google it, and then the Uncle Google, give you the more information. You will find out later on. So starting with the International Labour Conference, the first structure. So what about the first structure, International Labour Organization? This is most imperial and highest body of the part of the International Labour Organization, where you will find out that the most important activities and celestial activities, some crucial activities they are performing based on the International Labour Organization. So this is the most biggest part of the International Labour Organization, where the member of the different members are involved in that organization or in that labor conference. There may be basically 3 members coming from the different part. From the one of the part is the government, another part is the employees, and another part of the employers. So there are 3 different parts. The people are coming and they are representing the International Labour Conference. The ratio is designed in such a way 2:1:1. It means that 2 person from the government, 1 person from the employer part, and 1 person from the employees part. This is the way the ratio is designed, and these 3 different group members are involved in that International Labour Conference. And at least you have to have 1 meeting annually in a session. So it is must for the organization that you have to develop 1 meeting, and then this is the way you can form the International Labour Conference. So let's talk about the later issues of this part, or this organizational International Labour Organization, that is the International Labour Conference. The second part is the functions, what it performs. So the next issue is the functions of International Labour Organization. So what is the activities it is performing in our for the betterment of the international labor community. So first is the formulation of international labor standard. They are designing some international labor standard. What is a standard? Standard is a rules and norms they are following, and they are designing so that the organizations who are maintaining the international labor policies, who are designing their own policies based on that international standard or the labor standard, they are designing their own policies. Because employers are always they are trying to design some policies, not always think about the labor in favor of the labor. So that's why International Labour Organization, they are designing some standard, and this part of that structure of the International Labour Organizations are responsible for designing the international standard for the international community. So second thing is the fixation of contribution by the member of the different states. So different states right now, they are the member of the organization, and they are providing all the contribution, they are providing the money, and they are providing all the finance. They are making they are arranging the expenditures, because unless if you are not providing the contribution, then this organization cannot run their business, even their functions. So you need to pay the contribution, and this part of the organization is deciding that what may be the contribution that will have to pay by the membering organization. And the next issue is the deciding the budget and the submit the same to the governing body. It means that this is a most empirical institution. That's why they are deciding the most important crucial part of the organization, that is a budget. Without budget, you cannot make plan, because plan can be successful unless you have a budget. Plan cannot be successful because plan is a assumption. Plan is a the deciding the future, that what you will do in future is a prediction, but budget is a numerical expression of that plan. So I'll give you some explanation later on about the issues. So the budget you will have to prepare and submit to the governing body, so that the governing body can also review the budget later on to approve by and then the governing body will basically scrutinize the budget, and they will try to finalize the budget later on. I'll give you the overview of the governing body later on. I'm coming up. The next issue is the study of labor problems submitted by the Director General and assist in their solution. It means that they are trying to, it means that this part of the organization is basically understanding the problem of the different labor organizations, what their problem, and they are already found out in the different phases of the different communities. They are making complaint about the labor issues, and then they are submitting these things to the Director General of the organizations. Next is appointment of the different committees of these different phases. So I think this is important. Another descriptive part, even a very major area of the discussion of that appointment of that committee of the different phases, so that they can try to review the problem that what you already got. So that is the investigation the committees are making in that case. So another important part, and this is not even only important, this is even if it is a required part of the organization, that they are trying to make and elect the president of the organizations, and this body is basically responsible for electing the president of the International Labour Organization. The next issue, select the member of the governing body. Who will be the member of the governing body who will ultimately decide that your budget and your financial expenditure and all the issues? So who will decide? And this part of the organization is basically deciding that those members of the governing body, and finally develop the rules and regulation, and also they will time to time they will give you advice to the international committees, so that they will be giving some justice and other issues. The final part of that functions that confirm the powers and functions and the procedure of the regional conference. It means that there will be regional conference later on. It means that there are different regions of the world, and then they are trying to arrange some some kind of policies, regional policies based on the region. It means that for the Asian, for the African, for the Western, so there may be a different region. So they are not making the same policies for the same region, and they are trying to give you some. They are not following the same. They are not performing the same functions based on the region. Okay, so it varies from region to region, and so that's why they are trying to give you some powers and assign powers and give you functions and perform some activities related to their region. So this is all about our first part and the first important part of our discussion of this structure. The next issue is the governing body, the second important and vital part of our International Labour Organization, who are basically managing their times, and they are trying to arrange the important part, and they are trying to decide some important aspects of the organization. This is a tripartite body. It means that there is also three different parties are involved. It means that three different parties from the different areas, like around total 56 members will be in this governing body, and there will be a ratio of 2:1:1 already talked about earlier. So the way that you will have to distribute that 28 members from the government, 28 members from the government, 14 from the employer, and 14 from the employees. So from that committee, basically this is making, those people are making the governing body, and they are trying to represent the international labor organizations, and they are playing very crucial role for the development of the financial expenditure and also the different issues involved. So the tenure of that governing body is 3 years. After 3 years there will be a new governing body, and this is all about a small briefing on the governing body. So what are the functions they are performing? If you see that there are a number of functions they are performing, that it starts with the coordinates work between the International Labour Organization and Labour Office. So it means that there are two different parts. There are three different parts already. We talked about that: International Labour Conference and International Labour Office. So they are trying to make a coordination. They try to make a correlationship between the two different other structural part of the International Labour Organization. This is a very important part, the coordination. Sometimes people are finding difficulties in the coordination of the activities of the different people at a time. So exactly, this is very critical issues and reflective issues in our day-to-day life, that coordination of the different activities in the same area. So the next issue is the prepare agenda for each session of the International Labour Conference. So it means that sometimes International Labour Organization, they are having and they are trying to fix some meeting, at least one meeting already talked about. So what may be the area, what maybe they will discuss, what will be the subject matter of the discussion of that meeting. So they are trying to prepare those subject matters in the name of agenda. They are developing. Next is appointment of the Director General of the office. It means when we will be talking about the International Labour Office, that we will the office, it means the Director General Office, how they are selecting. It means that they are trying to appoint. The governing body is responsible for appointing the General Director of the organization. And next, another vivid, not in a simple, it means that already you talked about earlier that the budget is the most crucial part, but governing body will ultimately scrutinize. They are finalizing all the aspects, because they will have some curtail, they will have some modification, they are coming up, they are trying to improvise. Also they are trying to induce some kind of improvisation and also some development in the budget, and sometimes they are curtailing, or they are trying to reduce some area, or they are trying to eradicate some area that is not prominent, already designed by the International Labour Conference. So they are trying to minimize, and also they are not considering those areas. So basically they are trying to finalize the budget that is decided by the International Labour Conference. The next function, they are performing the following of the member states in regard to implementation and the conventions recommended by the adopted International Labour Conference. So this is a most critical and also complex part of complex activities that is performing by the governing body. That what are the recommendations made by the International Labour Conference and the convention designed by the organizations. They are trying to investigate that whether the member countries are following that recommendations or not. It means that this is a implementing part, and that part is also the controlling part, that they're trying to find out that whether they are following, the members of the different countries, they are following or not. It means that if they are not following, then the next action will be coming up later on. So next is a fix the date and duration schedule, and also agenda for the regional conference. Already we talked about that earlier, that regional conference are being conducted by the International Labour Conference, but when and what will be the duration and how the regional conference will be conducted, they are designing, the governing body. So I think that this is the governing bodies are playing the most celestial and most critical part of the International Labour Organizations. And then the SIC as when it's required the advisory opinion from the International Court of Justice, so with the consent of the International Labour Conference. So it means that they are trying to find out, they are trying to looking for some advice from the International Court of Justice, that with that consent, that International Labour Organization. So I think this is sometimes it is like that you are trying to find out some
they are looking for some advice from the international communities or the international International Labour Conference, so that what maybe they are trying to impose the new rules and regulation for the other membering country. They are trying to improvise, and they are trying to improve or give some advice to the membering country, but they are trying to find those consent from the International Labour Conference. So I think this is another part. So the last part of the structure is International Labour Office. So what is that? International Labour Office. So this is the office where the Director General are having their place, and then this is an office of the Director General appointed by the governing body, and that the Director General is responsible for he's also known as working like an Chief Executive Officer of the International Labour Organization, and the tenure of the Director General is 10 years. And 10 years mean that after 10 years, the same person can be the Director General if the governing body can extend, or he can renew the session of the same Director General, and then that person can be another session for another 10 years. He can be the Director General for the next 10 years. But I think it depends on the governing body, that whether the governing body will remain that person or will have that person for the next time or not. It depends. What about the other issues of the International Labour Office? It means that to assist that person, there will be two person who is a Deputy General Director, who will be working, and who is working as the Deputy General, Deputy Director General. And also another 6 person will be an Assistant Director General, who is also responsible for helping the Director General activities, because the Director General is the most highest part, and he cannot go for some elementary activities. So sometimes these persons, it means that especially the last 6 person is working the root level, and also they will send it to the Director General, Deputy Director General, and Deputy Director General is responsible for giving those policies to, or the things to the main part of the Director General of the organization. So what the things they are doing right now. So if you are thinking about that, they are performing some important part or the crucial parts of the International Labour Organization, and this is the thing we are talking about, the functions, the prepare brief and documents for the agenda of the International Labour Conference. It means that they are trying to prepare some kind of documents, that based on that memos and files, that what to discuss in the International Labour Conference in a meeting. This office is developing those data, they're collecting the data, they are managing those information, they are collecting the raw information from the different outside sources and making some documents for the International Labour Conference, that the people or the membering countries, what things they will discuss. It means that they are trying to analyze or they are trying to collect those information. Next, assist the government of the state to form labor legislation based on the recommendation of the International Labour Conference. The International Labour Conference, already we talked about earlier, that they arrange a meeting, and based on that they will recommend and they will develop some conventions. And this part of the International Labour Organization try to give the different membering countries or the government of the different state, they are trying to give some kind of advice so that they can assimilate, they can understand that how they can implement this labor legislation in their country. So this is another very important part, because sometimes International Labour Conference just develop the conventions and also the recommendation, but there is no breakdown, there is no explanation is not given, but how to understand, because all the membering countries are not thinking, or they are not getting it the same way. And that's why these part of the International Labour Organization, they are trying to assist those governments so that they can understand very easily. Next, bring out the publication related to the international labour problem of the international nature and also the interest. It means that they are trying to find out and giving the related articles and the publications and the briefings. What about the labor policies and the labor issues right now in the world we are facing? So they are trying to mold, and they are trying to aggregate, and they are trying to investigate those problems of the labor, and then they will submit and they will publish those problems in a form of article, in the form of publication, and then people of the different countries or the different area or the world they are giving getting some valid data related to the labor policies and labor problem. Next, actually we are talking about the International Labour Office, where carrying out the functions related to the observance of the conventions. It means that they are trying to they are trying to play a role like an observer of those conventions that is designed by the international labor community. So I think this is another crucial part of the discussion. And the final part is the collect and distribute information on international labor and social problem. So this is very understandable that sometimes this is not that much difficult problem for you to understand. So this is all about all the functions designed by and also all the structural areas. So next issue we will start today, and that is the mission and the objectives of the International Labour Organization. This is very simple. There are 4 different simple objectives. That what is the reason why the mission? Mission already we talked about the mission. The strategic management mission is that currently why the organization, or why anything just established. So what is the current objectives of the International Labour Organization? So what is the current intention? Why it has been established? The main intention is the promote and realize standard and fundamental principles and the rights at the work. It means that for the first thing that they will try to establish some standard rules and regulation, the most fundamental rules. It means that the basic rules and principles will guide the organizations at work for developing the worker-friendly environment, and also the policy so that the workers and the labor can work perfectly. So that's why they are working hard to develop those things. Next is create greater opportunity for the women and men to descend employment and income. It means not that much critical, but it's a very important thing that already we talked about the gender, that both person, men and women, will get the same benefits in the organizations, and they will create a level playing field for the people who will work in the organizations. Initially, we already we observed that in different centuries and different decades that the women are being exploited. Even women are not taking it as like that. They are not giving the same things or the same benefits as the men were getting. So I think they are international labor organizations right now, they are trying to create some opportunities for the men and women equally, so that they can get the right benefits and privileges according to the international labor community. So this is another phase, and then another part is then enhance the coverage and effectiveness of the social protection for all. It means sometimes when the people are coming from the society, they need some social protection, and then they are trying to develop some laws and rules and regulation, also the labor policies, so that they can be protected. And as a social people, you have to have your social life. So in the organization, it cannot be hampered by the organization, by the employer. They will have to think about their own social life also. So to think about that issues earlier already we talked about. So the last part is the strengthen the tripartism and the social dialogue. It means that the 3 parties involved in the organizations, and we are already talked about that, they are trying to take the initiative so that the people who are involved as a government and the employees or the stakeholders, there are 3 different stakeholders of the communities or the international labor community. they are trying to bolster and try to improvise or develop the strength of those three party, and they are trying to give some kind of social protection, and also they will give some kind of area where the people can be protected. So that's why I think this is the final part of the objectives. And now we are moving towards our last topic, that is impact of International Labour Organization on on labor in our country, especially. Why we are talking about that in the context of Bangladesh? Because we are studying and we are doing our activities in Bangladesh, so all the activities, all the impact should be understandable related to the context of Bangladesh. So starting with the first impact. So first, it means that technical assistance from the International Labour Organization. It means that when the International Labour Organization making some policies, it means the organizations, the people are getting some technical assistance. So this is a favorable impact for the International Labour Organizations making rules and regulations, so that the international community or the people or the international labor or the organizations, they are giving the technical assistance so that they can understand how to operate the machine, how to operate the operational activities in the organizations, that they are getting the training and development by the recommendation of the International Labour Organization. That's why International Labour Organizations developing such policies, so that under the labor or the employee who are working in the organization, they can get the right assistance from the superior. Next is basic human rights. So what about that? As a human being, you have a self-respect, you have a self-dignity, and the International Labour Organizations are protecting those rights and privileges. As a human being, as you know that we are human being, so you have to have some dignity. So organizations or the employer will have to think about those dignity in the organizations, and International Labour Organizations are designing such policies. And the people of the organizations, especially the managers or the management part, they are trying to understand the basic rights of the human being. So that's why employee can be protected in that sense. Next issue is the social security. What about that? Social security. It means that sometimes organizations are working in such a way that they are not protecting the social rights and privileges of the people or the employee. So they need security in the organization as well as in the society. So once they are giving, it means that they are providing the benefits, they are providing the salaries, and they are not providing the social security. This is not enough. So International Labour Organizations are giving some supports to the communities or the international organizations. They will give some recommendations that they are providing the self-security, social security. It is another impact. So it's a favorable impact on the social communities that people are working. And now we are starting another part, that is the international industrial relation. So what about the industrial relation? Industrial relation, in that sense, there are several things that in the industrial relation. Earlier we talked about that, the industrial conflict, industrial dispute, collective bargaining, trade union. There may be social aspects, culture. There may be international policies. So all are the international industrial things that we need, and industrial relationship will be in a better will be manipulated, will be controlled by the International Labour Organization's rules and regulation, because International Labour Organizations are designing such policies that you will have a better industrial relationship in the organizations, and you can have a better understanding in the International Labour Organizations. Exactly. I will give one example here. It will be very, very easy to understand that what industrial relationship, how it can be, it improve, how there will be a favorable impact on the industrial relations. Think about it. Already we know that we have a standard rules and regulation, and we are following the Bangladesh Labour Law 2006. This is already also designed based on the instruction, recommendation, and convention of the International Labour Organizations. So once there is a conflict between the two person, and they will have to have some grievances, so how grievance can be settled down, how industrial relationship can be maintained based on that you will have certain policies. So there will be standards, rules, and regulation of the industrial relationship. So this is an example that how you can solve the industrial problem in the relationship, or how you can maintain the better relationship. So you can follow the rules and regulation. It can be a standard it can be a principle way that you can follow these things in your life, also in the organization. So this is a way that you can improve the existing industrial relationship. Next, the employment of the spatial group. It means what about the spatial group? What do you think about the spatial group? Do you know that there's a spatial group, like some people who are working like a spatial in your organization? Who is a spatial? Did you get that? No. Sometimes organizations are giving privileges to the women, for the children. They are the special sometimes, because right now the governments, even any governments of the country or the world, they are giving some extra privileges to the women, because they are thinking about that they have some problem of maternity problem, they have some children, they will have some kind of problem of age, so they are giving some special privileges. So International Labour Conference or when there is a meeting and there is an International Labour Conference of the International Labour Organization, they are arranging some meeting, they are developing some convention and standard of those policies. And already we talked about these things earlier in the industrial relationship, 5th semester. There is an industrial law. We already discussed the Factory Act 1965. There is an working hour for women and working hour for children. So there is a section of maybe within 22 to 26. If you go there, right now this act is no more activated in our country, right? You have to follow the Bangladesh Labour Law. And if you go there, Bangladesh Labour Law, you will find out there is a special provision for the women and the children. So this is the things you can use as an example for the International Labour Organization, how they are providing the special privileges to those group. And the next is the labor inspection. It means that sometimes they are investigating the policies that what the organizations are following related to that, whether they are following the exact rules and regulation that is designed by the International Labour Organizations, or they are designing their own policies. It means that they are making a kind of audit. They will have some kind of assessment that whether they are following the right rules and regulations or not. They are making some committees. Already talked about that earlier in the International Labour Conference. There is a first structure, we already talked about that. They make some committees, and that committee will investigate the problems of the labor or the different country, and they will put it into the international organizations or the labor organizations, where the Director General can address those issues and try to find out any abnormalities, and then they are investigate those things in the case. So this is also an important part that sometimes organizations are following or not. They are based on that we are trying to have an kind of pictures like that. So next issue is creating a sense of solidarity among the workers. So it means that when there isn't workers are working in the organization, sometimes workers feel that I am isolated, I am not in the organizations, I am not in a group, I am not working I have no friends. So in that case, International Labour Organizations are designing some rules and regulation, because you cannot be work isolated. You are working under a supervision, in a group, under the boss, under the support. There will be several colleagues. So it means that you are creating some sense of solidarity, sense of belongingness. You will develop a sense of belongingness, that you are working in a team, and that is the important part of the organization that they are designing. And that conventions and rules of the International Labour Organizations are helping the workers not to be isolated. So next issue is the modern. It is a modern. It should be modern, right? Modern. modern trade union movement. So it is another important part that already we talked about earlier, the trade union movement in this course earlier in the second chapter. This is important and crucial part, the organizations in the part of the for the employees, that sometimes organizations are not like the trade union in the organization to perform, because trade unions are basically creating some problems for the employers. So in the modern trade union movements, there are more important and celestial features are added, more creative features, and more critical features of the trade union have been introduced by the international labor organizations, and that's why that modern activities of the labor trade unions are more improvised, more improved. So that's why this is another important positive impact by the trade union has been identified by these international labor organizations. This is all about our discussion today. So so what happened? What do you think about that? Already we talked about a lot of things earlier in this session. This is a very long session already we have. It is more than 50 minutes our class already. So now we are moving towards our concluding part of this session, that what will be our next phase of action. So I will give you some of the activities and assignment and in the group. So you will have to collect those things and you have to submit online so that I can check, and then I will submit it to your guide teachers as your 30 marks. So I think you have to be very cautious and very serious about your assignments and or your task. So you will be assessed online. Exactly, we cannot have right now this situation that we have a face-to-face conversation. So always all will have to be protected, be serious, because our educational institution, the problem that it will be further. There will be another increment. There is another halt. There will be another barriers already been provided by the education ministry, that our educational institution will remain closed up to 6th August. So maybe I think it will prolong again. I'm not sure exactly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know exactly when we will have our normal life back. So try to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always that we will have this situation. We will try to overcome this pandemic situation and try to get the normal situation, and we'll get our normal life back. So we are already being suffocated, but don't get frustrated, because frustration is not very good, as already we talked about these things in the industrial psychology. So frustration is not it is not expected by the people. So always pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you will get the patience in your life. So thank you very much for this session, and hopefully I will give you the next session of the review session later on, so that you can understand how you can proceed. And in the review session you will come up with your problem, so that you can review your problem. Also I can advise you, if you have your last 5 years question with you, so try to find out and develop some question based on the lectures, and you come up with your lectures and or your queries in the Zoom session later on. Now I'm giving you some tips and policies, that how you can improve, how you can be protected, how you can how you will remain safe in your life. So try to understand and follow the rules and regulation of the government. And also that is already initially I talked about that, always try to listen to your parents, your father and mother, because if you have no father and mother, even it is very, very unfortunate, but still you have some parents. It means your legal parents, your brother, your sister. Try to listen to to the instruction of those people, because they are playing a very, very crucial and critical role in your life. So